Welcome to Sculpture Studios, a nice juicy project here with a nice new juicy logo to add to our client portfolio. This is the first time we've created something for Ribena, and we've been contacted by Dave Westmoreland and Claire Ellis from a company called TRO. The brief was to create 3 giant fruit, 1 blackcurrant as standard with classic Ribena, 1 strawberry and 1 lime. They're all going to be around 80 centimetres tall with the rest in proportion, all high colour and quality and all durable for outside use. We begin by blocking out from pieces of polystyrene, and we're using nail brushes to take off the bulk of the material. We then move down to wire brushes and finally sand the whole form down to lose that excess poly bead. For something like a blackcurrant, the shape and surface is pretty straightforward, but for items like the strawberry and the lime where the fruits have more of a textured skin, this is going to be modelled up in clay. Once we've got the basic shape from polystyrene, we're using a scrim material here and plaster of Paris to give it a textured, grippable surface for the clay to hold on to. An advantage of using clay is that it can be kept damp from day to day to work on a little more if needed, and unlike polystyrene where it's quite tricky to re-add a piece of material after you've taken it off, you can add and take away the clay to your heart's content until you get the form you're really after. For these exterior seeds that Aden's carving on the strawberry, though nature has its own randomness with organic shapes and forms, there's also a level of uniformity, so these shapes are all being carved to be relatively similar. Here's the blocking out of the lime, cut using a hot wire to get the basic cubist form. Once it's been carved using nail and wire brushes, the surface is treated in the same fashion as the strawberry with scrim material and plaster of Paris. Clay is then applied in even thin layers and smoothened down to give a good surface to start working on. We're actually using a different kind of brush for the lime skin texture. Horses for courses, some processes require specialist equipment, and there's no exception here. After all, this isn't just any toothbrush, it's a Sculpture Studios toothbrush. Once the clay has been given that slightly cratered, pitted look, Aden's going over with a rough sponge. Though it's known to some as an orange peel texture, if you've ever looked closely, you can see that this applies to fruits like limes as well. The process we're going through here is creating a master pattern for all 3 shapes in order to take a mould from each one. For the strawberry, however, as it's going to have a different finish to the other 2, we're taking a slightly longer approach and we're going over the clay carving with plaster of Paris to create what's known as a waste plaster mould. The interior is then removed and the clay is extracted, and this is cleaned up and recycled for the next project, another benefit of using clay. What we're going to do is get the interior of the plaster to a really good standard, and then we're going to take a very thin fibreglass cast from this mould to use as the new strawberry master pattern. Plaster is water based, so we need to seal this off first with a shellac, otherwise the resin won't go off. The benefit of using fibreglass for the new master pattern is that it can be sanded down and buffed up to a really high finish. This can then be moulded once again in order to create a really strong cast from with a beautiful high gloss surface. All of the fibreglass cast that you will see at the end of this project are lightweight and durable and can withstand the elements of being outside and being touched by the general public. As the blackcurrant doesn't need to be as shiny as the strawberry, this pattern has had a water-based plaster filler applied that could be sanded down to a relatively smooth finish. We then go over this with a solid colour to see any imperfections and to see if it's ready for moulding. At the top where the fruit would normally connect to the stem of the plant, we've created this detail using clay, and we make sure it flows into the rest of the pattern. Both the blackcurrant and the lime are now ready to be moulded, and this is going to be done in multiple sections. This allows each piece to be pulled apart easily once a cast has been laid up inside. Seen as we're creating these moulds using fibreglass, in the same way the water-based plaster would have prevented the resin from going off earlier, the same applies here for the clay. So we're going over the clay with a PVA blue layer, and this seals in the moisture and acts as a barrier between the 2 materials. This needs to dry fully before any resin is put on top for the mould making process. We use a shim plastic material placed in thin split lines that we've made down the side of the sculpture, and these act as a wall that separate the mould pieces. When it comes to putting the glass fibre on, the shiny plastic material makes it so the fiberglass doesn't stick to each other as it's going off, and can just be peeled off once the resin is cured. Here we've made a top cap in silicone rubber for the blackcurrant stem detail, and Aden's going to show you the interior of this once the rest of the mould and the cast have been made. A good thing about fiberglass is that it's waterproof once it's cured, and here the PVA blue layer and some of the water-based filler can just be cleaned out of the mould using a jet wash. When it comes to laying up a cast, we go in first with a gel coat, and this gets into all the detail and provides a nice sandable surface when the cast comes out. We go on top of this with 4 to 6 ounces of glass fibre, and we make sure to bump up around the bottom lip of each sculpture, as this is the point that needs to be extra strong as it's going to be in contact with the ground.
Here we are. We have the strawberry here, and it's going to have loads of green on the top. We're just going round and we're cleaning up all these little surfaces, just making sure they're absolutely perfect. And then after that we're going to take a silicone rubber mould with a glass fibre jacket. So each one that comes out after that is absolutely perfect. That's the strawberry, and the green will be afterwards.
Better to get it right at this stage so that once we've made the mould, it's just far less cleaning up each time we get a cast out.
Yeah,
so.
and also we can see it, because in the clay you can't really see all the lumps and bumps, where this is, you can actually rub it down to get a lovely good surface to the whole thing, so that's good. And over here we have the blackcurrant, 3 bits of the mould, and we made a rubber cap. You stay there. The rubber cap, because it's so busy, like we made it out of silicone rubber so you can get all this as one hit, and the join lines around here. So we're going to clean this all down now, sand it back, prime it, and then spray it on the blackcurrant. Look, and that'd be quite nice.
It's kind of a semi-sheen for the blackcurrant, isn't it? Kind of a purple.
Yeah, it's not really a gloss.
Kind of a semi-sheen finish.
And then we're going to put a trapdoor in here, which we'll show you at a later date. Nice and strong, and it'll be good for the general public use. Over here, 3 parts to a mould, and this is a lime, a giant lime. Once again, we mould it up in clay, and that fits on there. That comes out.
We've got the cast over here.
I'll show you that. We've been being worked on just at the moment. Be laid up. Been joined down the middle because we can actually get into the underside of it. We're just cleaning up this seam line here and washing off the PVA blue, which is like a very thin film.
That's the release agent from the mould.
Yeah, that's a PVA blue, that's a polyvinyl adhesive. So yeah, just cleaning up these lines and then going to prime it and then paint it green. Once again, we're going to put the trapdoor in the front where they can put all the bottles as well. So it should look good.
We're spraying the fiberglass pattern of the strawberry with some coloured paint, and this is just so we can see the level of surface finish that it's currently at. The fact we're using multiple colours isn't really an important factor, we just thought it would look nice. From here we work up the finish using finer and finer grades of paper, and then we T-cut it to buff the shape up to a really good finish. We make sure we hose all the fruit down every now and then to make sure that nothing's going rotten on us while we're working. When we're happy that the surface of the strawberry is really lush and glossy, it's now ready to be moulded. To get into all the detail of the pips and the seeds on the exterior of the fruit, we're going over with a silicone rubber first and applying it in multiple layers. We do this so that while the rubber's still flexible enough to easily peel off the cast, it also means it's thick and strong enough so the rubber doesn't tear. We then go over with a glass fibre jacket, as you can see here, and this allows the rubber to retain its shape while it's being laid into for casting. The rubber tabs that you can see poking out of the fiberglass means that once the cast is extracted, the rubber can be placed back into the fiberglass jacket and located in the correct position. For each of the shapes, a box section is going to be installed so that Ribena bottles of the appropriate flavour to each fruit can be placed inside. We cut the shape out of the fiberglass as a trapdoor, and we have the box sections made up from plywood. Here the box is being cut down so the front edge of the wood matches the fiberglass shape, and once it's been fixed in, the wood is given a little decoration to blend it in with the rest of the fruit. For the top section of the strawberry, which is obviously being made separately, we're beginning to model this up in clay. Once it's been moulded, we're actually going to experiment on the appropriate finish and material to have this made from. See those muscles, Jen? With the basic shape blocked out, detail is then applied, and this will all be picked up in the plaster mould. As these fruit are all going to be at ground level, it's important that top details like this and the top of the blackcurrant are paid particular attention to, as these are going to be most visible. Not only this, but we always think it's nice to have a high level of detail that goes into any project that's in direct contact with the public. We're creating a plaster mould for the leaves, and the first thing we're going to do is experiment with a latex rubber finish so the leaves are soft to the touch. All the material from the inside is removed, once again recycling the clay, and the inside of the mould is cleaned up. We're going in with a muslin cloth and a latex rubber that we've impregnated with a green pigment, and we're leaving this to set. Often people like to touch things like this, so it's sometimes a nice surprise when it's not the solid surface they were first expecting. We've made one of our life-size African elephants with latex ears in the past that could move around and flap in the wind, and it just adds a slightly more tactile side to the sculpture that encourages people to interact with it. With our fiberglass cast for the strawberry curing in the mould, we're doing some paint test samples on the original pattern to work out the best paint and colour to use. While the fruit are being decorated, they've all been measured up so that packing crates can be made to transport them in. They're going to be moved to multiple locations, so they need to have nice safe storage units to allow them to be relocated again and again. We're now going over with several layers of emulsion paints to give a really strong colour.
What's that? Flies on the fruit?
Just one fly, yeah.
Yeah, in there. It can be a very pale green, the same green but lighter. On here, just giving it a very sort of tickle up now, getting a lovely sort of, again, it's a light mauve in there and a dark on the top. Very nice, sheen to the whole thing. And the last one, which is up here, we've got loads to do on this yet. Still got to create the top cap, which is the green. Sean, can you hold up the latex one? We looked at a latex one first of all, but not quite working, we think. I don't know why. It does look quite nice though, but not as vibrant like as we want it, so we're going to make a fiberglass one.
It's almost a dusty finish where this can kind of be quite a nice sheen along with the other fruit. This kind of comes up quite pale and rubbery as opposed to lush and green. So.
Yeah, and then we'll paint all these little bits and pieces in on the top, so it should look quite nice.
So with the latex version not quite meeting the standard that we're after, we're now creating a fiberglass cast from the same mould. We're going in with a green gel coat first to give a nice smooth finish, and following this up on the inside with glass fibre. With this method we know for sure that the outcome we can get to a really lush and glossy finish is much more appropriate for what we're after. Once everything's dry, we're going to go over these with a 2K lacquer, and this will toughen the surface up and make everything weatherproof. Here you can see the fruit before they've been lacquered. The blackcurrant and the lime are going to have a semi-sheen applied, and the strawberry a high gloss lacquer finish. We always appreciate when we're sent images of the sculptures on site being enjoyed by the public, so we'd like to thank Dave and Claire for the final shots and thank them for the project. We hope they're enjoyed wherever they're taken to, and look forward to working for Ribena and TRO again in the future. Please feel free to leave any comments below, as they're always appreciated, and hit the subscribe button for our latest videos. You can like Sculpture Studios on Facebook, and for more of our work, visit sculpturestudios.co.uk. Thank you very much for watching.